Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. This is Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Mentor Select serves parents who are raising teens. Every week, Derich interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. All while parenting them to be successful adults, focusing on social and emotional development, something that's left out of the classroom, but not in ours. Be sure to subscribe, share, and rate. This is Mentor Select, and this is your host, Derich Phillips.
Welcome to episode 86 of the Mentor Select podcast. I am thrilled that you joined us for another phenomenal interview. All right, parents, you're in for a real treat today. We have Deputy Mayor Pro Tem McGough joining us. How are you?
I am doing good. It's a good day in Dallas.
Yeah, weather's pretty nice. This is my kind of winter. We're certainly thrilled that you could take time out of your busy day to share some of your expertise with our parents. Deputy Mayor, can you tell us what is your expertise of working with teenagers?
I now have a new teenager. My oldest son just turned 13. So
awesome.
we're into all the new experiences as it relates to dealing with this. Who knew everybody likes to text so much and all these other apps and stuff going on that we're learning more about. But, all the other social things with school and sports and new girlfriends and all the things that come along with that. There's just a never ending list of struggles and amazing, wonderful things, and just trying to relearn the lives that we all lived in a very different time and different circumstances through the eyes of our young folks. It's a really interesting and sometimes fun experience.
Sometimes fun. Yes, indeed. Certainly a roller coaster. But in your role as councilman, you've been a councilman for almost 5 years now?
It's been 5 years, elected in 2015.
All right. So as an elected official, your constituents also include teenagers. What is your experience just working with teens in your role?
Well, I'll tell you something I learned early on. I was the mayor's chief of staff before being on council. And before that, I spent about a little over 8 years as a community prosecutor working in the city. So I got to work all over the city and in various contexts, a lot with our youth and in different schools and neighborhoods. And one of the things, I'll go way back to about 2007. Part of my job as a community prosecutor was working with different communities and identifying what they really wanted to change and improve in their community. Okay. And so I always had a group of stakeholders and leaders and, HOA presidents and business folks and people who are involved in the schools. And it was interesting because a lot of times the adults wouldn't necessarily agree on things. But when I got the kids involved, and this is sometimes even in the elementary school, it was amazing the insight that I got from the young folks. Specifically, there are times when the adults were either frustrated or got apathetic, but when you got the kids involved, all of a sudden it just brought new life into the discussion. And I learned really that if you listen first, and listening is sometimes easier said than done, but if you really listen, you can identify the type of projects and the type of things and the type of focuses that will have a huge impact in the neighborhood. And that's where it started. And since then, every step I've made along the way, we keep a group of advisors that are certainly adults and stakeholders and leaders in the community, but also a group that are young folks. And more recently, 6 or 7 years ago, we started a group called the Mayor's Rising Star Council, which started with 6 schools across southern Dallas. We've added Lake Collins High School. And it's a group of young, starting usually around sophomore age, and we keep them and work with them all the way through graduation. And now we've had several now that are about to graduate from college that are still working with us. But just running issues by them, looking at issues that we're facing as a city, whether it be around public safety or economic development or parks and recs and some of the stuff that we deal with at the city, but asking the questions to the younger generation and hearing their insights has been one of the most valuable parts of this work. And certainly every time we have one of those meetings, I comment to the people that do this with me. It's my favorite time of the week. Each time we get together and work with the kids, it's always learning something and always getting something of value to add to the discussion of what we need to be doing as elected officials and those that are public servants in the community.
Yeah, that's a really good tip for parents. And essentially, you're empowering the youth by giving them a voice. And then, as you mentioned, you're just surprised by what they come up with. Certainly, parents should consider doing that more with parents that are not doing it. They're really giving their teens a voice and just allowing them to problem solve and get their input on issues that affect them.
It's so true. You said the word empowerment, and I think it's a huge word because our kids are going to get their power from somewhere, from someone, and they're going to figure it out one way or the other. And it's so much better when it's done in a constructive way and when they can see the fruits of what their thoughts are. I mean, we're all constantly learning and changing our thoughts about things. A couple of years ago, I was with a group at Lake Highlands High School, and I was just asking them what they want in their community, what they need, what it's missing. And we got all sorts of things. But one of the things that I kept hearing was they wanted another activity or something to do around the high school.
Okay.
And they came up with wanting just sand volleyball courts, a place to go and play and, have some time around the high school. And so when we were having big bond discussions, I was able to put that into one of the components of the bond. And now, right across from the high school behind our aquatic center, we're building sand volleyball courts that will be, open for kids to play at and stuff like that. So it's just
wow,
for them to be able to speak something into existence and then see it happen is, something I want our youth to get and to see and to feel and to learn from, and then get empowered from those kind of things. It can go the other direction too. I love the idea of really watching our young leaders, men and women, get encouraged by being involved in positive things.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned that kids will get their power from somewhere or someone, regardless. What are some ways where you saw youth getting their power in negative ways?
It's happening right now. We have some of the highest increases in juvenile crime right now in the city of Dallas, and specifically in District 10, than we've had in a long time. A lot of the older adults that are maybe not acting like adults, but the adults that are bringing kids in, and they know that they can ask the kids to do things that are maybe criminal, maybe selling, maybe dealing drugs, maybe doing other low-level criminal things, but that they won't be held as accountable as if they were an adult.
Right.
And what's happening is our kids are getting, and they're starting to build records and things that take opportunities that would be in front of them away from them early on. And so all of us, right, we're just looking for wanting to be part of something bigger, wanting to be part of something that's meaningful. And if we're not able to do it in a constructive way, our kids, they're creative. They find ways. Whether it's on the cell phone or on a street corner, they're going to find a way to get involved in something. And right now, we spend a lot of time and energy trying to find things that are good or productive: sports, recreation, activities, job training, things that can add value to a kid's life, not take it away.
Yeah. And I recall when I was growing up being raised by my uncle, and he told me that, hey, you have to play sports living in my house. And at the time, 12 years old, I'm like, what do you mean I have to? I didn't quite understand it, but it did make such a huge difference, because the time I spent playing sports and practicing was time I wasn't spending in just a negative environment. I wasn't spending out on the corner or hanging with the wrong influences.
I hear that over and over again, whether it's sports or the arts or something. It's that focusing that time and energy around something that can lift people up and show opportunities and help people expand even outside of their own, just their neighborhoods and just the area directly around them, see what kind of bigger world there is out there. I mean, so many of us and our kids and our families, we don't have unlimited resources. Can't just pick up and travel anywhere you want to, but the idea is to really try to create other opportunities where you can do those things in our neighborhood. I mean, we've opened a boxing gym right in the intersection of Forest and Aldelia, and we're trying to have additional activities for our youth, whether it be through late night basketball or partnering with our local Y chapters. And we've put more money in the city into getting free access for youth to our rec centers and trying to expand program. It's just a never ending cycle, but I think it's always good time and energy spent when we're putting it into our youth activities, trying to give more opportunities.
Yes, no doubt about it. So, Deputy Mayor, I know you mentioned that by trade you are a lawyer, but what is your area of expertise?
I've spent most of my time in the mediation area, and I have to laugh. My mom, not too long after I started mediating as a professional, she still thought that meant having something to do with, deep breathing and meditation. She didn't know the difference.
I'm sure that helps too with the process.
It's funny. I've found as I get more and more into it, some good healthy breathing exercises are pretty helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a mediator. I love getting in the middle of high conflict, highly complex situations, and working with people to resolve those issues, to focus on the interests where things overlap and where there are shared interests.
Right.
At the end of the day, there's a lot of reasons and things that we get into, or we're fighting with each other. Certainly in the politics of the day, there's nothing but division and immediately either victimization or attacking as a way of communicating, and it's just not effective. And when we bring it all down, we're more alike than we are different, and there's so many ways to resolve conflicts that don't require escalating to a point of physical or dangerous hurting each other and things like that. And so I've kind of dedicated my life to being someone that's going to jump in the middle of conflict and help resolve it with the parties, with the people that are stuck in the conflict.
Right. Yeah, I can see how that can be a very valuable skill in politics. That's not something you hear often anymore. Mediation or dispute resolution within politics.
I really thought when I first was moving and decided to run for office and how that would impact my mediation world, I really honestly believed, and I kind of struggled with it for a little bit. I thought, I'm going to have to take my mediation hat off and set it down, because my community doesn't need a mediator. My community needs an advocate, someone's going to fight for what they need and what they haven't got, and injustice and equity. And I'm just going to have to be a fighter. And it was maybe the first issue out of the box where we had a big issue on the Trinity River and whether we were going to have a toll road or not and what that was looking like. And I just realized that when I sat down and started talking to both sides, I saw some overlap and was able to really mediate a resolution that both sides agreed to and had the first unanimous vote in the history on the Trinity Toll Road project. And it just got me kicked off, realizing that what we needed more than anything is what you said in politics. We needed somebody that certainly I'm going to advocate and fight for what I believe and what my community needs, but there's so many issues that if you just listen to the other side for not necessarily what they're saying, but why they're saying it and what interests are behind what they need, that you can find common ground and you can find a place where people can get needs met. And it's a much better process than it is otherwise. And so I've found that, just as you said, that my experience or my knowledge as a mediator has been more helpful than anything else I've done in this city. And I'm real proud of some of these big items that I've been able to get in the middle of and help resolve for the city.
Yeah, some certainly worth being proud of. And what you said is that advice, it really applies to just all areas of our lives, whether it's politics, school, communicating with your spouse, just anything. That's universal. Identifying those shared interests and that overlap. A lot of people take it for granted and just want to point fingers and blame. Like you said, that's not effective.
Well, and we want to be right. Even when you're talking about the interactions with your kids or your spouse, and we have a certain lived experience and we know a certain truth that is in our world, and and we believe a certain way. And if you have any other opinion or thought, you're just wrong. And until you kind of step back a little bit and see that the other person has a certain lived experience and certain beliefs and truths there, that when you put it together, it's like, so many of our conflicts and our disputes are just misunderstanding, just misinterpretations, and people unwilling to or unable to listen or understand through the other person's eyes. And so instead of dealing with it, we turn it into a big fight, or now we unfriend people, or we start talking trash, and gossip enters the world, and it just turns into a nasty situation, and relationships are ended. Whereas if we just had, maybe it's a third person, maybe it's a trusted counselor or a pastor or somebody that could help facilitate the communication. It's amazing how much time we waste in life in these fights that don't have to be that way.
Absolutely. Now, shifting the focus of your expertise to the actual school environment, I know a lot of parents, their teens are dealing with getting bullied. How does that work in that environment?
There's a lot of different ways to look at it. And the first that comes to mind, I mean, so many of the kids that are doing the bullying, when you really uncover what's going on, those kids are acting out from a place of woundedness, right? They've been hurt, they've been harmed, they have certain experiences that lead them to a place where they need to feel bigger. They need to feel like they're getting their power from being dominant over somebody else, or making somebody else look bad or feel bad, or to lift themselves up. And at younger ages, it's hard for kids to be able to process that, right? Like they just see the experience and feel the interaction and the shame or whatever it is. And they see that, often the bullies are rewarded because they get the laughs or they get the benefits. And, it's kind of a self-fulfilling behavior that is causing the problem. And until you find a way to get to that, either flip the script and find out a way to have a relationship where you can make friends with the bully and, help them to see that that's not the way that works. Or, in some cases that take more recently referred to as the upstanders, the kids that won't laugh, that won't, reward the bully's behavior, but it'll stand up against it, that will fight against that behavior. Or often parents don't even know it's happening to their kids. And so making sure you've got a bunch of different channels to hear from, whether it's teachers or mentors or friends in the neighborhood or other community. My kids play a lot of soccer, and so I get to take my kids to soccer games or practice, and usually we get carpool. I got some other kids with us, and I'm always asking them something, right? Just touching base, figuring out what's going on, and you'll hear some of these stories. And so it's just being connected. And when, if your kid is one of them getting bullied, it's having that kind of consistent relationship where eventually the child will tell you what's going on or tell you how it makes them feel. And then you get an opportunity to deal with it. Right now, man, with social media the way it is, and the way people can take an incident and blow it out of proportion. And, it's a scary time on some of those fronts, is figuring out how to deal with those situations. And the only real way is to make sure that your child knows that whatever their love language is, or whatever it is, that they know that they're loved unconditionally. They have a strong enough foundation, whether it's in faith or belief, or just in relationship with your parents or your grandparents or mentors, or whoever is raising the kids, that they know who they are, and they don't have to get their identity and their value from friends and bullies and whoever else is speaking into them at school, so that eventually they can be that upstander and, change the whole dynamic when bullying is occurring.
Definitely. And yeah, as you mentioned with social media, that just takes it to a whole nother level, where when I was growing up, sure you were growing up, bullying was more localized, maybe within the school or within your city, but with social bullying, then hey, that can be just international, where it just spreads so quickly. Just the impact of it, the effect of it is a lot, I think, harsher. But also what you mentioned, I think is very important, is about the upstanders. And really that comes down to really the culture of the school and people actually standing up against bullies and saying, okay, we're not going to laugh. We're not going to condone this. I think that's very important as well.
It sounds kind of weird putting in the terminology, but as an elected official, I get bullied all the time. I mean, through stuff people post on social media, and they try to say certain things about you to get you to decide a certain way. And, it's just, and it affects you, you want to, you're in these roles because you want to serve, you want to improve the quality of life for people. You want to, be part of something good, and start reading this stuff. And it's people forever just say, don't read it. Well, it's hard not to. And then,
right.
When I was a kid growing up, bullying was physical. It was, someone's going to push or trip or we're going to fight about it. You got to stand up, and knock them in the jaw or whatever. Now it's psychological. I mean, it's the comments, it's the taking something someone says as a secret. I mean, again, like I said earlier, my son get texting now, and I start seeing people take screenshots and getting videos of somebody else acting a certain way, and all of a sudden it's spread to everybody on the team or everyone in a certain class or whatever. And it's, I mean, those kind of things stay forever. I mean, I am thankful beyond even any sort of recognition that we didn't have cell phone cameras and stuff when I was growing up.
Me too.
There's certainly no way I could elected official.
And that's good insight for the listeners. And like I said, as an elected official, you're getting bullied. People wouldn't think that you're getting bullied, but yeah, that is a form of bullying when people making comments, posts, and trying to influence your decisions. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily end just because you're not in school.
They don't necessarily want you to decide things based on the merits or based on the facts or, what's right and wrong. They want you to decide or do something that they want you to do just because they want you to do it.
Right.
And it's just an interesting dynamic that, again, I didn't expect to witness or experience in a role like this. You think you kind of passed all that, but no, it never ends.
It never ends. Like I said, it will take a toll on anyone. Absolutely. Well, hopefully the good comments and the good feedback outweighs the negative. Now, shifting to really just communication, like you mentioned, having those lines of communication open between the parents and their teens. What are some effective ways that parents can really open up those lines of communication? Because I know a lot of times I hear from parents that, hey, my teens, they're disengaged. When I try to talk to them, they don't really give me like one word responses. It's just really challenging to communicate with them. There's some strategies they can do to really open up those lines of communication.
Yeah, I'm laughing while you say it because just last night, my wife was like, yeah, he's just, not only is he just answering with one word, he's just texting me one word to respond to things. And, I think the answer is, again, easier said than done sometimes, but just having the intentionality to always be ready when they are ready to talk and ask the question and, hold back from some of the things where we want to just tell our kids exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, but to be available to them where they'll bring you those questions. I mean, our kids are always asking the question, do I really have what it takes, and how am I going to identify who I really am? And I want to sit my boys down every single night and ask them everything they did all day long and tell them where they made mistakes and all that. And they just don't want that, right? Like they got to learn it on their own.
Right.
But it helped. And there's these moments where, we might go a week, we might go 2 weeks and not have a whole lot of, whatever interaction we can have, but it's just kind of at the surface.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it'll be, hey, Dad, what should I do about this? Or what did you do this? Or did you ever have this? And it's just those moments you got to be ready for. And quite honestly, the biggest issue is you got to be present for. And I think all of us that are living crazy, chaotic lives with work and dealing with all sorts of drama in our lives, when we get there and there's that moment we're tired, or I got to go do something else, or I want to do something more fun, or I want to watch this part on TV or whatever it is.
Right.
And if we're not present and intentionally there when those times align, then what I believe, and I'm still learning, but I believe they'll quit asking, right? They'll quit if they go to the well a couple of times and it's dry,
Right.
then they start saying, okay, I'm going to take this question to somebody else, or I'm going to talk to my other friend, or I'm going to talk to, that guy on the street doesn't have my best interest in mind. And then they start getting those answers on really critical things from people that I wouldn't necessarily want given those answers to our kids or to our mentees or to the people that we're trying to support, love on, and take care of.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Like you mentioned, just have to be ready on call, essentially, when they bring those questions to you versus you can't really necessarily force it or happen on your terms or your timeline. It's when they bring them up to you. That's a really good point. Serving in political office, I often see where you have your sons out there with you in terms of volunteering and doing just things out in the community. What impact has that had as far as the relationships with your sons?
It's some of my favorite times in this role. I want to instill in my kids a deep sense of satisfaction that comes from serving others. I want them to feel what it's like to be, to have an idea, to then turn it into a concept that you're fighting, but let it be about whatever we do, how do we make someone else's life a little bit better from it? And so, we've started since they were basically born, engaging in whatever the activity is. First of all, it's just more opportunity to be together.
Right.
And, people say this a lot, but one of the things that means so much to me is how kids spell love, Time.
Right.
And so the more time you can spend with your kids, whether it's at work, whether it's last year in the fall, my youngest, who just turned 7, he got in trouble at school and didn't obey, didn't do what he was supposed to do. And so I just asked his mom to tell the teachers that he wasn't going to be there the next day. And his punishment was to come sit with me all day long at a council meeting. No books, no games, no phone, whatever. He's sitting there and having to pay attention and be involved. And, now I don't want time with me to be his punishment,
right.
But I wanted him to see just a different experience. And what I laughed about is at the end of the day, he was like, can I go back? It wasn't fun for him, but he just enjoyed being with me.
Right.
And, the teacher reported that the rest of that week was the best he's ever been at school. And it's amazing how just having the kids with you and letting them see, what we do, whether it's through work or service or volunteering or something, what kind of positive impact it can have on them. And the other thing is I have so much going on with events every night, and I miss a lot of stuff. And so I want every chance I get to have the kids with me. I want to have them with me to just, again, have time together. And there's a balance in just knowing how to serve and where to serve, and then being in other people's homes and other people's lives and seeing how different we all live in certain ways, but then how similar we do in others. And so I'm just trying to get them as much exposure to everything, good and bad, that we have, so that they can kind of help navigate what they want to do and how they want to serve when they get older.
Yeah, I think that's so important for parents to understand. Just that exposure is vital. And as you mentioned, is the counterpart of it is spending quality time with your kids, whether it's at work or any activity. That's really awesome. Well, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem McGough, you've given us a lot of great strategies, tips, and resources. I really can't thank you enough. I know you have a city to get back to help running. But before I let you go, I just wanted to let you know that you have certainly inspired me. You're the councilman for District 10 that I live in, and just seeing how demanding that role is and how many events you have. And you're always there. You're always present. You're always just listening to people and embracing people. That's something that really inspires me to do more. So I wanted to thank you for that. And say again, thank you for coming on my podcast.
Hey, it's an honor. It's an honor to call you friend. When you ask us questions about service, but you didn't even hesitate when I asked you to serve, and you continue to step up and help give back to this community and this city. And your example, your story, the way you continue to just have genuine curiosity and talk to people and try to use all your gifts to help others is admirable. And I thank you for that. I thank you for all that you have done to help me personally and to help our community, and just look forward to working with you every chance we get, and just keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You've been listening to Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Hosted by Darrich Phillips. Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. We get it. That's why Darrich interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. That's why we do the show. Be sure to share Mentor Select with other parents of teens. Follow us on social media at Mentor Select to stay up to date on the latest tips, strategies, and resources for parenting teens. Send your questions and comments to darrich@mentorselect.com. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Till next time, this is Mentor Select.